It's been almost 8 years that I've been holding in a secret that I was date raped by another man. Nearly the entirety of my marriage, I have kept this from my wife. I was sure that this would be something that I took with me to the grave. I felt so much guilt for what happened all these years that I didn't even realize that I was date raped until working with my therapist. I told myself that I drank too much that night, I blacked out / in and out of consciousness, and that it would never happen again. I was on an extended work trip for a few months when it happened. Across from the hotel I was staying at was a dive bar that I would go in every so often for a nightcap. The bar was a gay bar, which is the part that makes me start feeling guilty. Despite being in a heteronormative relationship, we both are quite queer in our lifestyles. I've never labeled myself bisexual before because I've only ever had relationships with women. However, my relationship history is very limited as I met my wife in high school and we've been with each other ever since. But I've always known there's a part of me that is attracted to men. That's why I feel so much guilt for what happened to me. What was I doing at this gay bar by myself if I'm a straight man in a committed marriage? Was I looking for attention or gay baiting to stroke my ego? I was there for work, so I didn't really have any friends to socialize with, and so when this man approached me offering to have a round with me, I ate that attention up. I told him about my job and all my aspirations, and then the next thing I knew I was on the floor at some nightclub surrounded by people staring at me. I remember the loud music and the lights and people in giant bird cages dancing. Then I remember being dragged out of the club and tossed on the sidewalk where more passerbys stared as they walked by. I have no idea how I got back into my bed, but he was there too, petting my head and running his fingers through my hair. I felt violated. I felt like a total piece of shit. The guilt weighed on me heavier than anything before, but I couldn't tell anybody, especially not my wife. It would break her heart. I felt like I cheated on her, and it was with a man. What would that mean for our relationship? Then, a night or two later, I went to a party that my coworker invited me to. I was sitting at a fire pit next to a woman and we hit it off. We talked about music and movies and had a lot of the same interests. I told her I was married so she wouldn't get the wrong idea, but we continued hanging out until the party ended. At this point she was drunk and had some coke and weed, and so I offered her a ride home so she wouldn't have to walk through the city like that. When I dropped her off, we awkwardly hugged each other goodnight while sitting in the car. But the hug lasted a little longer than it should have. Then we were kissing. I pulled away and said, "Sorry, I can't do this, I love my wife," to which she laughed and then left. I drove back to my hotel in shock. This one was on me. I didn't drink that much, I was in full control of myself, and still I kissed another woman. That is infidelity. The guilt was unbearable, I wanted to puke. The next day I tried to act like nothing happened, but I was so nauseous from holding all the guilt. I know I needed to call and tell my wife what I had done, that I kissed another woman. I called, she hated me for it. I felt like an asshole and deserved to be punished. I left out the part about the man from the gay bar. I still wasn't 100% sure what had even happened with him, and at this point was just pissed that I put myself in that situation, but also grateful to him for getting me back to my bed somehow. I must have mentioned that I was staying at the hotel across from the bar, but I have literally no idea how we got back there. Now, fast forward to today, almost 8 years later, and through those years I've had my mother-in-law further accuse me of cheating and a general sense of judgment from my wife's family. My wife would bring up the kiss every so often after a night of drinking because it still hurt her, and I think she could sense that there was more to the story that I hadn't shared. Talking it out loud with my therapist was so incredibly liberating. Now that it was out, I couldn't put it back in. I knew I needed to finally tell my wife, but I feared that too much time had lapsed and that she would be disturbed by my ability to keep something like this hidden for so long. I have been depressed for years, but the last 2 years have been severe. My confidence is completely gone and my negative self-talk runs the show, but I'm healing. I told my wife, we both cried, and I'm crying now while I type this. She couldn't have been more gentle or understanding, and I love her so much more for that. I know I still have a long road to recovery, but I hope that if anyone else is out there and stuck in a cycle of self-sabotage because you're holding on to something like this, know that you're not alone.